On today's show, we'll figure out just how much money the Ottawa Senators will have to play with this summer.
And we begin our season in review segment with a trio of goalies.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today is Monday, May 12th, and Pilsy, it's appropriate that we're brought to you by Monarch Money today because we are figuring out the Sens finances going into the offseason.
Yeah, hey, Steve Staios and the stats department, if you guys want half off your first year with Monarch Money, let us know. We can help you manage your money here. But all kidding aside, we're going to do our best. Two not math guys trying to project salary cap for an NHL team. What could go wrong here, Ross? I think we're going to nail this.
Well, we've worked our way to this point because last week we took an in-depth look at all of the Senators' unrestricted and restricted free agents. So we're going to plug in those numbers, and in some parts of the lineup, we're going to discuss just a player here. You have this much money to budget, for example, for a backup goaltender. And we'll get to that. And if you're watching on YouTube, we've got graphics to make it easy because there will be a few numbers. And I know that that confuses me very easily. But before we get to that, let's take a look at all of the work that Steve Staios has to do internally this offseason. We've calculated all of the unrestricted and restricted free agents onto this graphic. And Pilsy, we also have our first movement. Belleville Senators defenseman Filip Roos has signed in Sweden after 1 year with the Baby Sens.
Yeah, good luck to Filip Roos. I don't know. He never really had a lasting impact in the Senators organization, and I'm sure heading back home, hopefully that helps his career. But he was one of the guys, Ross, I think both of us looked at and was like, I don't know if it's mutually beneficial for him to stay here. So probably best for both parties that he's moved on.
Yeah, he was an even rating, 17 points in almost every game played with Belleville this past season. 26-year-old defenseman was brought in as a UFA this past summer. So felt like I barely knew you, Filip Roos, but with a lot of left shot defensemen in Belleville, makes sense that he goes to find greener pastures. There's a ton of names on this list, though, that you want to see back, whether it's for Belleville or in Ottawa. One thing I'll be fascinated to see is how much turnover there is in the AHL club with now no longer Ryan Bonus running the operations down there, and another disappointing result right after winning their first playoff series last year. You were hoping that they could build on that. Plenty of reasons why, not the least of which is one of the players we're going to discuss today not being available to them in Leevi Meriläinen, as he had his, I won't even call it a cup of coffee, he probably had a pot of coffee in the National Hockey League with 12 games played, but they dealt with call-ups and injuries all season long. So it'll be really interesting to see who's back in Belleville and with the Ottawa Senators. And we've got the depth chart here from this past season where we've moved a couple players around because this is our team on this show, not the Ottawa Senators. So what we've done here, and we asked on Twitter at Sens Central, would you be comfortable with a top line on opening night of Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, and Fabian Zetterland? Pilsy, what would be your answer to that question?
I think my answer would be yes, Ross, because I think you have to at least give it a shot. You have to see in a decent sample size, can Zetterland be a true top six player on this team? We know he can be a top six player in San Jose, but he hasn't really shown that he has the production to be a top six guy on this team. Now, has the eye test and the advanced analytics backed up his performance? Yeah, sure. But ultimately, you need him to start getting more points than he did in his time with the Ottawa Senators. But how can you know that if you don't try? So I'm okay with giving him a shot, and I think it makes most sense, Ross, to have him on that line with Tkachuk and Stützle rather than on the second line with Cousins and Batherson.
Still 2 days to vote at Sens Central on Twitter. The early returns with over 500 votes, 74% of citizens believe that would be a strong way to start the season. Our friend Nick Spence writes in saying, start with Sure, because you can always move Drake Batherson onto that line. They've seen some success together with Tim Stützle and with Brady Tkachuk. But because we've taken Claude Giroux off that spot, we've moved him over to left wing with Cousins and Batherson. Now, before everyone comes and yells at me saying Giroux plays right wing, he did play a fair share of left wing this season with the Ottawa Senators, most notably over 110 minutes on a line with Tim Stützle and Drake Batherson. He also played with Josh Norris and Drake Batherson as well. So when he was on those lines with Drake, he was the left winger. So it wouldn't be foreign territory to see Giroux play over on the left side. And Timmy picked up his face-off game towards the end of the season, I'd say the entire second half. So no longer do you have to have the strong face-off winger that can help out in the right dot, even though Brady can obviously take some face-offs for him when needed. So if you're moving Claude Giroux to left wing, I do still think you can find a top 6 role for him.
Now, Ross, by doing this, does it concern you having 3 righties on the second line? Is that something you put a lot of stock into?
Not really, no. Because, I mean, when David Perron was there, he's a righty as well.
Yeah, I mean, fair, yeah.
Sens have a lot of righties. They went from a team full of lefties 2 seasons ago, and now they've got enough righties for, 2 teams pretty much.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's weird how teams go through those ebbs and flows of having a lot of one shot and not a lot of the other, and then it just flips sometimes.
Yeah, I think, and especially the way Giroux plays, I don't think it's gonna be a hindrance. And again, there is room for upgrades. We'll get to the amount that the Sens could have to play with, but we've got Giroux with Cousins and Batherson. That's the second line. That moves David Perron to the right wing with Shane Pinto and Ridley Gregg as your third line. And then the fourth line, 2 UFA spots right now. Right now, Adam Gaudette is the fourth line center, Nick Cousins at left wing, and Michael Amadio we've placed at fourth line right wing. On defense, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen, Tyler Clevin is an RFA, and then Nicholas Matin-Palo, who has re-upped now 2 years at $875,000, will be there. Linus Ullmark is making $8.25. His extension will kick in this summer. He gets a healthy raise. And then Anton Forsberg is an unrestricted free agent. So with those unknowns of Forsberg in goal, Clevin on the back end, Zetterland, Giroux, Gaudette, and Cousins up front, that is a lot of spots to fill still, 6 to be exact. The Senators have $17.57 million in cap space to make it happen. If you watched the shows last week, you know that we're comfortable giving Claude Giroux $5.5 million. We're comfortable giving Fabian Zetterland $4 million. We're comfortable with giving Nick Cousins $1 million, Tyler Clevin $1.1, and we have just simply allocated $1.5 million per season for the backup job and $1.3 million for the fourth line center role. I think that Adam Gaudette's priced himself out of Ottawa, and good for him, but you can't just be going in and adding a guy who's making a ton of money at the fourth line center position. So do you think, A, it's fair that we're putting $1.3 million for the fourth line center role and 1.5 for backup?
Yeah, I think 1.5 for backup makes a lot of sense, especially when you got a goalie making as much as Linus Ullmark does, and you have Leevi Meriläinen in the wings there. And then 1.3 for a fourth line center. I think the Ottawa Senators, at least personally, my opinion, they need to target someone that is either a physical centerman or a penalty killing centerman, or, get yourself someone that does both. I think that would be ideal. And you'd like him to have some experience and a resume that can back it up. And if you're going to have a guy like that, it's probably going to cost you more than just a minimum or entry-level deal. So 1.3, I think, is fair.
And we're going to have plenty of time to speculate on who that could be to fill certain roles. But with those annual average value contracts that we discussed, and I'd like to think that we've kind of guessed a little bit high, as you would do on Monarch Money with your budget, because then when you have that surplus, now all of a sudden you feel like you have a little more freedom to play around after. But if those are the contracts that are signed, the Senators would still have $3.17 million in salary cap. Is that enough to upgrade the lineup to your liking?
No, it is not, Ross. I mean, what are you gonna do with let's say that 0.17 is just space you need to not go over. So let's call it an even $3 million to do something. What does $3 million get you? A bottom pair defenseman that could play up in the lineup, or a bottom six guy. Really, right? Like, I think in this age, that's kind of fair. And the Ottawa Senators, in my mind, need to upgrade a top six winger, and they need a right shot defenseman that is serviceable. So I guess you could say, Ross, that you could upgrade the lineup with that right shot defenseman, someone making, I don't know, 2.5 or something like that, and that would be okay. But is that what this team needs to push them over the edge? I don't think so. We've talked about this, Ross. I know you're on the side. Your priority is that right shot defenseman, so I'll let you have your piece. But for me, the priority is a scoring top six winger, and having that much money left over isn't really going to do you much unless you're looking at trades and you're going to trade someone and then allocate that extra $3 million to acquiring a better player.
So that's where we're at. It will likely come down to a trade, unless you're going to let Claude Giroux walk, if he's not going to have that. And then all of a sudden, 3.17 would turn into, math guy, $8.67 million in cap space, but you would have a top six role that you'd have to fill.
Yeah, and I mean, I think realistically, if the Ottawa Senators are targeting someone making in between 6 and 8 million for their top six, that could work. You could find a guy that fits your needs in that price range. But then, yeah, you've just lost a massively valuable player and person in Claude Giroux in this organization. So I'm not sure that's the route I want to go.
No, I'm not sure it's the route I want to go either, but we saw so much turnover as well. Like, another point on that, we saw so much turnover last season into this year. And I know there were other extenuating circumstances, David Perron's unavailability at the start of the year, that sort of thing. But it felt like this team gelled down the stretch. How many changes do you want to make to this roster while trying to upgrade, but also keeping in mind that a lot of these players, like, look at the top six. Brady Tkachuk, 26 years old. Tim Stützle, 23. Zetterland, 25. Batherson, 27, Cousins, 24, Pinto's 24. These guys should all, Ridley Gregg as well, 22. He turns 23 this summer. I think that can be forgotten rather quickly with the way he's established himself as an NHLer. I don't think it was just to say by Steve Staios that he expects internal growth to be the biggest reason why this team gets better.
No, it's fair, because, I mean, you can look at everybody, those top guys, and say, you could have got more out of him. Like Tim Stützle, we know he can score more goals. He had 39 one year. Brady Tkachuk, we know he can be in the 30s every single year. Even Jake Sanderson, although he had a career year in points, he started off terribly. So if he can be a little more consistent in the start, even he can have better numbers. Linus Ullmark, if he's more healthy, can provide this team with more. David Perron, a consistent veteran when he's healthy and doesn't have other things going on in his life. So you can definitely look at that and think, all right, a rising tide floats all boats, right? Like, if everybody can just get a little bit better, our standard is going to be elevated to a different level. But the question then, Ross, becomes, what is this team's goals for next year, right? Like, if you just want to build on this year, let's make the playoffs again. Let's be a tough opponent in round one and see where that gets us. Sure, I think running it back and expecting internal growth and maybe adding a right shot defenseman, you could do that. But if your goals are beyond that, like, let's say, just for argument's sake, the Ottawa Senators end up pulling off the miracle and reverse sweeping the Leafs, and then they're up against the Panthers. Do you think running back this lineup can contend with the Panthers or any of the other Eastern teams that are in the next round, Washington, Carolina? That's where you have to start looking. What moves do we need to make to not only build on the year we just had, which was a successful year, and you got to be proud of it, but where do we need to bring this team to get them to a next level?
I would use the remaining cap in what we have for a defenseman.
Yeah.
And then look to upgrade via trade up front. Now, I don't want to throw out any names because then we'd be unpacking another can of worms, but we'll get to that after this part of the program, the yearly calendar we have here on Locked On Senators. There'll be plenty of time to debate and speculate which names could be in play as we get to the transactional period right before and during the NHL draft and into free agency. But this is more of just an overview of what the Senators have right now and what their projected contracts could be if they stick around. The Senators would have about, let's say, anywhere between $3 and $5 million in cap space if they're bringing back Claude Giroux and signing Fabian Zetterland. If not, then you have two huge holes to fill in the top end of your lineup. Obviously, Zetterland being an RFA makes it a little bit of a different situation there. Let us know in the comments what you think about the Ottawa Senators offseason, how things are shaping up in the early going. How much will you miss Philip Roos? Jokes aside, we've got seasons in reviews next. We're going to start, of course, as a hashtag goalie-friendly show in net. Linus Ullmark, Anton Forsberg, and Leevi Meriläinen. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, buying NHL Stanley Cup playoff tickets, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, all your investments, all your spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Club EG. I saw Claire Hanna was out golfing with Club EG this morning, and you can too. Club EG makes sure that everybody's welcome, whether you're a male, female, junior, senior, good golfer, or you like smacking it around like me. Doesn't matter. Club EG has something for you. You can purchase a membership and play over 60 great courses that Club EG partners with. You can join a golf league, go on a golf trip, or even play in the Ottawa Sun Scramble. It's a two-person scramble championship. It's completely up to you which path you take with Club EG. Check out clubeg.golf for more information and to learn about so many great options. The goal is to get you playing more golf this summer. With 60 great courses that Club EG partners with, you have so many options, and their tournaments, leagues, trips, they're all top-notch. You do not have to be a member to take part in any of the events, leagues, or trips. But if you want to play over 60 great courses day in and day out in Ottawa, there's a great early bird special on now at clubeg.golf. All right, Billsy. So that is a lot of math. But Steve Staios and the rest of the brass for the Ottawa Senators are going to have to figure out how to fit under the salary cap. It's a lot more fun than when we were signing Tyler Ennis on the last day before cap was due so we could hit the rock bottom.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I don't know about fun, Ross, but it's a lot less stressful because that was fun being like, oh my God, Twitter just hit Tyler Ennis signed a minimum deal to get the Sens over the floor. Let's go. We're going to play this season. Yes. Yeah, it's a lot more stressful trying to fit a team under the cap, even a cap that's going up here, Ross. Like, I think when initially you heard the rumors of where the cap's going to go, and you're like, oh man, the cap's going up. We're going to have all this money. And then you look at it, you start slicing away, you start budgeting, and you end up with a little bit less than you probably thought you're going to have at the end of the day. Very relatable.
Yes, very, very relatable, but not anymore thanks to our friends at Monarch Money. But Pillsy, we're going to get to our season in reviews. We're going to hammer through the entire NHL roster and a couple of the depth pieces that came up and provided support throughout this NHL season. And of course, we have to start in goal with Linus Ullmark. Linus Ullmark had, I would say, a solid overall first season with the Ottawa Senators. He started 43 games, had a 25, 14, and 3 record. And after a bit of a tough start, when he came over, he settled in extremely nicely, finishing with a record of 25, 14, and 3, a 2.72 goals against average, a 910 save percentage, and 4 shutouts. How would you give your overall impressions of Ullmark's first year in Ottawa?
Yeah, I think solid is definitely a fair term, Ross. Like 2.72 for a former Vezina winning goalie, you'd like that to be below 2.5, I think, but it's not terrible. And then 9.10, that's solid. I think you'd like it to be closer to 9.15, maybe even creeping up near 9.20. But in today's NHL, that's hard to do. And then you get 4 shutouts mixed in there. I think another one is the 44 games, right? Linus Ullmark had his problems with his back that kept him out a lot of the time. You'd want that number to be, I think, 55 to 60. So get a couple more games there, and that's good for Linus Ullmark. But he had some incredible stretches of success. And then he had a bunch of blips of, I was going to say failure, but I don't know if I want to call it that. But there was times, Ross, where we're looking at Linus Ullmark and he's let in a bad goal to start off a game for a couple games in a row. And you're wondering, all right, where are we really at with him? But overall, when you look at these numbers, solid year.
Yeah, very solid. And when you look at how he came to start in Ottawa, the opener was unreal. 3-1 win over the Florida Panthers, 31 saves. Followed it up with a couple disappointing ones, I'll say. The 6-4 loss in Vegas, especially, where they had a lead in the third period and could not get out from under it. But really, this season turned around with my top moment from Linus Ullmark. The Senators went into San Jose to play the worst team in the National Hockey League, and they got outshot so damn heavily to the tune of 39-11 were the shots on goal in that late 10:30 start. And Linus Ullmark stood on his head, gave the Ottawa Senators a chance to win that game, and Adam Gaudette came through in the third period. I think it was like their only shot in the third period. They were getting hemmed in completely, and Ullmark stood tall. Then he just continued on from that moment forward. If you start, and I know it's cherry picking, I know it is, but there was a stretch of 30 games for Linus Ullmark, and yeah, I'm taking out the last game of the year too against Carolina when everyone wasn't playing. He let in 5 goals. They won 7-5, okay? I can do what I want when I get the range in here. In a 30-game sample size from November 25th to April 12th, Ullmark went 27-2 with a 921 save percentage. That is why the Ottawa Senators made the playoffs.
Yeah, he crushed it, Ross. But I'm going to zoom in even a little bit more to what I think the defining narrative of Linus Ullmark's season was. And it begins where you talked about that San Jose game. From November 27th to December 19th, a 9-game stretch where he went 8-0-1 with a 954 save percentage, and then unfortunately got injured in the game up against Edmonton right after that. But for me, it was that 9-game stretch where he was just starting every game, playing back-to-backs, multiple shutouts in there, giving his team a chance to win every single night. That, for me, was when Linus Ullmark was at the height of his powers.
So what's the expectation then for Linus Ullmark next season?
I think, get more than 50 games played. I think let's start there. I feel like that's a safe base for a true number one goalie. Under 2.5 goals against, 30 wins, and honestly, I'll say above a 910 save percentage. Like the save percentage at 910, I'm very fine with, especially from what we've seen in the past years from Ottawa goalies. So honestly, those are small upticks, Ross, where if he has the health, I'm sure he can achieve those things.
Since the Senators' previous playoff appearance before this season, they've had 5 goalies play at least 40 games in a season. Ullmark hit 44 this year with 43 starts. The one other game we talked about with the funniest moments, the Colorado game where he had to come in twice. But in those 43 starts, a 910 save percentage is second best after Anton Forsberg's 21-22 season, where he had a 917 in 46 games. So Ullmark with a 910, it's great. I'd like to see the 50-game threshold as well. Only Craig Anderson the year after 2017 had above 50 games. He had 55 starts. Korpisalo hit 49 starts in last year with an 890 save percentage. But to me, I think it's just starting on time. And I know that's cliche, but with the Ottawa Senators, I think it matters more than any other team. We need Ullmark's December numbers that you brought up in October to get this team rolling and off to a great start. He admitted that it was a bit of an adjustment to learn the tendencies of all the defensemen that he was newly playing with. So that won't be an issue. We don't foresee big changes on the back end. So he's going to know how to play off his defensemen a lot better. And I expect, I'm not even hoping, but my expectation is that Ullmark has a 915 save percentage next season. So we'll see if he can accomplish that. Let us know in the comments how you felt about Linus Ullmark's first year in Ottawa. He is now kicking in to his 4-year extension worth $8.25 million per season. On the other side, we'll get into Anton Forsberg and Leevi Meriläinen. Will one of them be the backup goalie next season in the NHL? All right, Pilsy, it is season in review week here on Locked On Senators. We have the goalies today. Tomorrow, we'll be doing the top 4 defensemen, depth defensemen on Wednesday. We'll get to the forwards on Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and I'm really excited for next Wednesday at the middle of May. Exit interviews with management. We'll look at how the team improved or maybe got worse in different areas. Then it is draft coverage here on Locked On Senators. So Anton Forsberg, a very curious case this season. The no doubt backup goalie. Wasn't like last year where he had to fill in a little bit more often earlier on in the season. I know he ends with 28 starts last year, 27 this year, 30 games played in both. But how would you categorize his season where he went 11, 12, and 3 with an identical 2.72 goals against average as Linus Ullmark, a 901 save percentage, and 3 shutouts?
I would say polarizing, Ross. Like this was the most kind of engaged the Ottawa Senators have gotten about a second goalie in the franchise in quite some time. Like there was 2 sides of the argument. And I feel like people flipped what side they were on throughout the year. Send Forsy to the moon. I don't care what you do with them, how you get rid of them, what you get in return, or who's replacing him. Yeah. People were just like, just get him out of here. And then there were people that were like, look, sure, the numbers don't look great, but Forsy is a guy that we need as a safety net. He's a veteran goalie. He's been a good soldier for this team. When he's good, he's very good. And he's a guy that's crucial to this team, even though it may not be in, like in such a high regard in the underlying facts of a hockey team. You need a veteran backup goalie from time to time, especially when your starter gets hurt. So I don't know where Sens fans land on Anton Forsberg. I feel like we had a mix of comments, Ross, on our discussion where we kind of suggested that keeping him might be the best option when you look at the rest of the market and what's available. But do you have a better way to describe Anton Forsberg's season?
Either A or Z, no in between. He had games where he let in 3 goals on 6 shots, like his first game of the entire season against the LA Kings. 3 goals on 9 shots, made 6 saves. And then he had games like he did against the Utah Hockey Club, where he had, I think, 11 saves in the first 10 minutes and had a 31 save shutout. He was either the best goalie in the world or maybe one of the worst. And that to me it's tough, because if you're playing in front of that, you're not sure which one's going to show up on any given day. We looked at the UFA goalie list and it's not pretty. So do you want the devil you know or the devil you don't? I think you probably lean with the one you do. And I also feel like a lot of the polarization of that, we just talked about Linus. He had that unreal 917 percentage season before the injury, and fans got accustomed to Forsberg being able to kick him out night in and night out as needed. He earned the contract he got, making $2.75 million per season. But clearly, as the injuries, especially a major one like double MCL tears on the same play, and the age is creeping past 30. Oh, man, he's my age. That was tough to say. But even still, this is the type of guy where if Forsberg put up these numbers on a $1.2 or $1.3 million contract, I don't think there's nearly the polarization as there was because he's making 2.75.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Now, did you look at this season, Ross, and did you give him a bit of leash being like, maybe he's still coming off the double MCLs or?
Nah, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a serious
Big
injury
time.
for a goalie. I don't think I did either, Ross. It didn't look like something was hindering him or an injury was still lingering. But moving forward, knowing that he's a aging goalie that has that could be something that creeps into your back of your mind as a concern with Anton Forsberg. But I think, too, what's important for goalies is the relationship between the two goalies, because if you've got two guys that think they should be the number one or that they've earned a higher share of the net, I mean, look at Boston, Swayman and Corpusalo. Corpy made it public that he wants to play more games and he didn't feel like he got a good enough split. And ironically, the Ottawa Senators and Bruins switched their goalies here, but you look at Forsberg and Ullmark, and they got nothing but good things to say about each other. Linus Ullmark being like, Anton Forsberg helped me and my family when we moved here. We played together when we were younger. Now we're here in the NHL. Forsberg knows that he's not the number one guy. He's in his 30s. He doesn't have aspirations of trying to snag that job or anything like that. So the dynamic between two goalies, while it doesn't have analytics or stats to back it up, I believe there's something to be said there that you've got a goaltending duo that is comfortable with each other and works well together.
And it's also worth noting, too, that Forsberg's now been a Senator for a long time. He knows the ins and outs of the organization. 132 starts in 142 games. That's fifth on the Ottawa Senators all-time list, one ahead of Ray Emery and one below Ron Tugnutt. We spoke a lot about Anton Forsberg last week in terms of the projections and going forward. But looking back, was there one moment to you that defined Anton Forsberg's season?
I don't know about defined, Ross, and especially in one moment, because I think what you said was true. He either was very bad or very good. I'm going to be positive Pillsy today, Ross. I'll focus on how about that shutout he had at the end of the year against Florida. That was a big one because going into that weekend, the Ottawa Senators had to decide, okay, how are we going to split up this back-to-back near the end of the season here? Because they were going up against Florida Panthers on Saturday and then the Columbus Blue Jackets at home on Sunday, both those games at home. And keep in mind, at this point, they had not clinched a playoff spot yet. That happened a couple days later. So the decision to go Forsberg up against Florida and him giving them a big, I think it was a 39 save shutout.
Correct. Yeah,
up against the Panthers was absolutely huge. So I'm going to say that was a defining moment for Forsberg because he showed he still got it.
Yeah, he also went into Utah and shut out the hockey club for the first time they had ever been shut out in their home barn. The fans in Utah got to go to a game and not hear the horn even once. I think if I could pick two moments, it'd be that Utah one because it was a great bounce back. And then also the first game of the season where it's like, oh boy, are we on the rails here a little bit? 3 goals on 9 shots. And Ottawa bailed them out, though. They got the win, 8-7. 2 goals from Zach McEwen in that game and the OT winner from Josh Norris. If he is back, it has to be below $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then I don't see a reason to move on from him. But we will wrap this segment with expectations. If he is back, what would you like to see from Forsey?
Honestly, like maybe Sens fans are going to get at me for this, but a pretty similar season to what he had here, like 30 games, keep that goals against average under 3. Let's bump the save percentage up a little bit and have a winning record. And he was right around all those things here. So just a little more consistency, and I think he can achieve decent backup numbers. And I think, Ross, for a guy like Anton Forsberg, who's really settled in here, I think for him, the idea of keeping his family here and sticking in a city and organization that he knows might be worth more than trying to go after the bag right now. And I could see him taking a team-friendly deal to stick around.
Yeah, I hope so. He had 6 starts last season with a save percentage below .850. I would honestly trade a couple of those shutouts to have those elevate a little bit, right? Like let's regress to the mean both ways here and just give solid goaltending. We'll see if Anton Forsberg is back. Pilsy, Leevi Meriläinen was unreal. You can't tell the story of the Ottawa Senators season without Leevi Meriläinen. The 22-year-old Finnish firewall comes in and just puts the world on notice that he is a legit stud NHL prospect. In 12 games played this season, 8-3-1 record, a goals against average of 1.99, a .925 save percentage, with which, albeit a much smaller sample size, tied Connor Hellebuck this season. He also had 3 shutouts as well. Were you impressed by Meriläinen? Ha.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Amazing, incredible, stupendous, terrific. Like how many different synonyms can I go through here? I got to bust out the thesaurus pretty soon to describe ways that Leevi Meriläinen impressed me this year, Ross. We knew he had skill. We know the one-on-one ability, breakouts, penalty shots, shootouts he's got. But to be able to put these numbers up in the NHL, and it just felt, Ross, every night that he was starting, you're like, well, how much are the Sens going to win by? Because he was just shutting the door and teams didn't have a read on him. There was no book on him. There was no check the game notes, bud. Nobody knew how to beat him, really. And he just, to put it in his words, he's just doing his job. And he did a good job when he was in the NHL. Even in Belleville, he had great numbers, Ross.
Yeah, let's focus on the NHL, though, where we did talk about him on Friday because he is a restricted free agent. But if you look, and 3 of his first 4 games this year, one of them was a relief appearance, he had a save percentage below .860. Like and the one game he won was my defining moment, where he went into Minnesota on the second half back-to-back after losing in Winnipeg, and that was a close game, tied in the middle of the third period. Norris gets a power play goal to give Ottawa the lead at that point, but he made a number of 10-bell saves in that one, and it must have given him a jolt of confidence, because then in his next game, the team played horribly in that Dallas game on the road. Then he gets his first shutout of his NHL career against Pittsburgh, 5-0 on the road. And at that point, Pilsy, he hadn't even played a home game yet, because his 2 previous NHL games were also on the road. So his first 7 NHL games were all played away from home ice, and he wraps that with a bow, a 29-save shutout, comes home, beats the Dallas Stars, then goes on to Long Island, gets another shutout there, comes home, only goal he lets in is in overtime against Alex Ovechkin. Then he has a battle game where Boston is up 5-3 late. Jensen scores. Norris scores to tie it. Sens win in a shootout. He stares down David Pastrnak. And then it was the whole team fell asleep that Rangers game. Did he start that game? I don't even think he did.
He did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that wasn't good. Then comes back with a bounce-back performance against Utah, and then shuts out Minnesota, 16 saves, although the Senators dominated that game. That was probably he didn't have to be great in that game, but still, he was perfect. My expectation for him next season is to build on that. I expect him to be known by the end of next season as one of the best goalie prospects in the National Hockey League. I still believe that the Sens should get a veteran goalie to not put too much pressure on him and to keep him from just sitting on the sidelines. Let him play games in Belleville and have him on a 2-way deal, no waivers. He can come up, come down as you please. I want him to be known as the best goalie prospect in the NHL, one of them by the end of next season.
What are we setting the over-under at NHL games for Leevi Meriläinen next year? I was thinking about setting it at 10.5. How do you feel about that?
I'll go slightly over. I think that's a very good number to have, because if Ullmark is unavailable for any stretch next season, like they did this year, Meriläinen's your guy. And Forsey's just going to play that backup role, or whoever is the backup. And Leevi's going to be a guy that either is playing in Belleville or playing in Ottawa. I want him very rarely sitting on the bench.
Agreed. Yep. Okay. How about this then? Over-under of games started in Belleville.
I'll say 30.
Yeah, I was thinking 30, 35. So, yeah.
How many did he play down there this year? 30?
He played 37.
Okay, so I'll actually up that. I'll say 35 in Belleville and 15 in the NHL.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stick with 10 and 35. That's good to me. But yeah, I'm with you. Whatever happens to Leevi Meriläinen next year, I want him playing games. I don't want him to be a designated backup and only get in a handful of games. So I think it's much better for him to be in the AHL, like you mentioned, no waivers. Bring him up, even if there's not an injury, Ross, and you just want to shake things up or give one of Linus or the backup goalie a break or a breather or something. You can do that with Leevi Meriläinen for sure.
All right, Pillsy, final grades for the goaltenders this year. Get the report cards out. I'll go with a B+ for Linus Ullmark.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, so I'm with you on that.
A C for Anton Forsberg.
Yep.
And an A+ for Leevi Meriläinen.
Okay, I was wondering how high you would go with Leevi.
How could you ask for more?
Yeah, no, you can't. You can't. Well, the only way you can ask for more is to have a bigger sample size. That's it. But yeah, I'll go with that. B+, right. C, A+.
Let us know in the comments how you felt about the Ottawa Senators goaltending this year as a whole, where one thing's for sure, it was way better than last year. The Senators finished this season with the 13th best team goals against average, a 2.83 team goals against average. So a lot better than we have seen in the past for the Sens. The 5-on-5 save percentage for the Senators this season was also 12th in the league at .913. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me, just because we're talking about goalies that played in the NHL for the Ottawa Senators last year. Briefly on Mads Søgaard, tough year for him, lots of injuries. The only game he won all year was that wild LA game where he didn't even start. He didn't win any of his games in Belleville, 8 of them. So we're hoping Mads has a big summer recovering, working on his game, and he can come back and push Leevi, make it difficult for him to be the number one starter in Belleville. But just wanted to make sure we got a quick word in on our guy Mads. I'm sure we'll have him back on the show sometime in the offseason.
Always so thoughtful with his responses. We're big fans of the Søgaard family and Mads in particular. Got to be a tough year, especially when you're seeing a guy who was drafted a year after you take the strides that Meriläinen did. But it's a competitive business, and now it's his turn to get healthy and show out next training camp and be ready to rock and roll, because you can't discount a guy who's 6'7", can move pretty well laterally, and has the type of resume. Like, didn't Søgaard come in and win like his first
7-0 when he first came in, Ross?
Yeah. We know he's got skill. I think he's been thrown into the fire a little bit more than probably would have been reasonable at the NHL level. That year where Forsey got hurt, he had to start 17 games. Big summer ahead for Mads Søgaard. Good call getting that in there. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. If you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up below on YouTube. If you're listening to us, you can give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back tomorrow breaking down the seasons that were for the top 4 defensemen of the Ottawa Senators. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.